just got to lower this a bit.
Sure.
I get a fucking...
Oh, we're recording. So there you go. I'm Dave. That's Sean.
Howdy ho, neighbor.
He doesn't have a mug, so I have the mug for him. That's what we're doing today. So welcome to Barstools
And Bandtalk.
Boy, oh boy, do we ever get a great show tonight? I'll let you bring her on, but I'm excited because we actually had the opportunity to see this lady last week perform. And for me, that was probably the first time I saw her perform. She's got a lot of things to talk about. She's a local celebrity for sure. Actually, I would call her probably an Atlantic celebrity, maybe.
She's highly famous.
She's highly famous. Go ahead, bring her on.
Well, and before we do, one thing that you're going to get about her is she's got an infectious personality. She's very bubbly. We went out last Friday night to the Pacifico, and her band was playing. And, you know, we had a great time. We couldn't stay as long as we wanted to. This last weekend was super busy, but what we saw, we enjoyed immensely. And we are here to introduce the lovely and talented Liz Rigney.
Yeah. Let's bring her on. It's Liz Rigney. And there she is. Oh, somehow she's upside down again.
Howdy.
She's sideways.
I'm sideways. Let me see if I can.
Liz, you were perfect.
There.
So
Is that better? Oh no, look at you guys. That's funny. My phone's on my side. Isn't that funny?
You should just lay down.
Turn it this way.
There you go.
Now that's straight up and down, but you guys are sideways. Now what if I go like that again? Does that? Oh, has that?
There.
Is that better?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Zoom.
We don't have the big budget of Bell Media, just saying.
We don't even have Pro Zoom at work yet.
I know people.
It makes people have to stop talking after 40 minutes, so it's perfect.
Yeah, people long for the days when we didn't have the Pro Zoom.
Yeah,
Trust
that's
me.
true.
We
tend to get a little wordy here, Liz. We're a little bit wordy.
You got a lot to say.
Yes.
Really.
So, Miss Rigney, so Dave and I went out. We saw you guys last Friday night. And to give you a little plug, you're there again tomorrow night, correct? The Pacifico.
Yeah, that's right. We play every Friday and Saturday night, God willing.
So talk to us about that. That was a neat little combo there, and just give us a little what on what takes place on Friday nights at the Pacifico.
It's funny because the Pacifico is known as a dance club, but of course with COVID you can't dance.
Mm-hmm.
So they thought, well, we have this beautiful space. It's an old bank building, and so they renovated it and thought, well, people could come in and sit and have drink and have supper, but we're going to need some kind of entertainment. So they have a very good relationship with the trumpeter Mike Cowie, and he said, well, we could put like a jazz kind of easy listening style group together. And so he has some regulars he usually plays with, like Dave Burton on the drums, Silvio Pupo, the keyboard player, Larry Bjornsson, who's a bass player, and I've sung with him periodically over the years. So we got together and started rehearsing tunes we all knew.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of those guys are improvisers. They come from pretty strict jazz backgrounds, so improvising for them isn't a problem. So we started playing like straight up jazz, but with the freedom to move around and make it our own every time we do the song. And sometimes we play with different tempos, maybe trying out different keys. So it's interesting for us as musicians to play that stuff. It's not like we're playing the same tunes every week in the same way. And it's more the kind of music you could sit and listen to and get into. It's, you know, we actually occupy the dance floor, so there's no dancing anyway.
Right.
And it's a nice, easy, relaxed space. So it's almost like, I hate to say it's like a jazz club because it's not what you would traditionally think of for jazz, because we do some more modern tunes. But I guess if you'd have to say what kind of music it would be, I guess, I don't know, what would you guys classify it as?
I almost felt like it was like not like a calypso, but it was kind of like I really had the vibe that I was down south. It was like that easy listening kind of, maybe like piano bar, but not really piano bar. It was just, I don't know. I guess you call it jazz, but it was, I enjoyed it. It was like a really cool vibe, and so I would recommend it for sure. Anybody who just wants to chill and listen to some talented musicians. The George Street Jam, is that what you call it?
Yeah, and I think you're going to hear it for the first time. I think we're going to rebrand and call ourselves the G Street Band. So you heard it here first.
Scoop.
We love exclusives here at Barstools and Bandtalk. We love it.
Well, and One of the takeaways I had, you said you guys get together and jam a bunch of songs that you know, because when Dave and I do that, it's usually taking care of business, and it's a lot less intricate than what we saw there last Friday night.
Well, I had never played with these guys as a group. I've played with them individually, and I've seen them a million times. But when I sat in on the first night, it was kind of like a let's see how this goes. And we had some charts, and I forgot to come in a couple of times after people were soloing, because I was just looking around like, what is going on over there? How is that even a solo? That is insane. Like, they're so musical, these guys, and they just played for so long. They just know their instruments so well. It's inspiring for me to just sit and watch these guys too. So I find it's like very organic every week. The same song, let's say if we do like a Blue Sky, Smiling at Me, very traditional tune, it's different every time we sing it.
Well, we all know how jazz guys.
Mike, though. Like, you could just watch Mike Cowie. Like, he, without question, was the band leader, and you could get his cues from him. Like, I was sitting in the audience saying, "Oh, time to come in." He give the nod. It was time to come in.
Yeah, I was about to say, we know how jazz guys like it when you miss your mark. So it's you better not do it too many times.
No, you do that once. So like in my head, I kind of have to sing the form in my head, because they're playing over the form, but maybe not in the right key or the same time signature or the same structure. So if you don't know when they're finished that form, you're just, I mean, they'll wait for you, but not.
Call that modern jazz. No big deal.
Yeah, right?
If there's a boo-boo being made, no, it's modern jazz. It was today.
And to your point, I watch Mike like a hawk, because he is the band leader, and he'll never leave you hanging. So even if he does add, there's a couple of songs we have that are mostly like 4 bars, or 4 beats to the bar. And then a couple will have like, he'll throw in a 2 beats to the bar. And then the 4. So like you miss that, you're in another world. So yeah, I really got to concentrate.
Yeah, I hear that. The other neat thing about the Pacifico was on your break, I got up to use the washroom, and I wound up back at my house in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
That is a gigantic building.
By way of Sydney K. Bretton, I'm pretty sure. I think we hit Sydney in the wave. We said, what the hell? You did warn yourself. But Liz, you nailed that the other night. I'm going to be really honest. I was I don't know if I've ever heard you live perform, maybe at the somewhere, but I was really impressed with your voice. It was really, really nice job. So
thank you so much. I mean, I actually am trying. I'm really trying. I'm rehearsing and I'm working on my tunes, because with a band of that caliber, you don't want to just phone it in, you know?
Yeah.
You hear that, Dave? Band of that caliber, you don't want to hone it in.
Phone it in, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so all joking aside, Liz. So, and I mean, that's, it's not like that's the first gig you've played. I mean, you've been around. I don't want to say around for a while. That sounds wrong, but I mean, you've been singing for a bit. So outside of that, what were you doing before that?
Well, I actually studied music at school, believe it or not. And then I was in like a dinner theater for a while, and I just found it really stressful to have to work contract. So I'm not sure. I had a couple of jobs, but then I had that opportunity to work at CTV, and I thought, well, that's kind of, there's a lot of improv involved in television. So I went back to school, and I was able to just get like the 1-year journalism degree from King. So I went to school, but still worked at the dinner theater, which was music and acting. So I had a bit of, we had some bands who had kind of like came together out of that experience. And then just over the years, I ended up singing with different groups, or I had like a little jazz trio. I mean, I did the tattoo, but then I hooked up with the folks in the Stadacona Band. Right. They have vocalists, but sometimes they might need a dedicated vocalist for a particular project, or they have people who are vocalists, but they're playing on one certain song, so they might need an extra vocalist. So for years, I sang as just an extra singer if they ever needed it for special projects. And that was where I realized, like, you come prepared. When they send you music, like, you actually come prepared to the gig. I mean, because they're such professionals. It taught me a lot about knowing how to act in that type of environment.
Mm-hmm. You play a lot with our good friend Michelle Ryder too in Sons of Motown, right?
Boy, I tell you, I love that band, and it's because of Michelle, because she actually got me into the band. She said, "Do you want to come audition for the band?" It's like, oh, well, yeah, I'd love to audition. I have never been so nervous, and Michelle was so encouraging. She just, like, I have so much time for her. And the first time you hear her sing, like, if anyone has not heard Michelle Ryder sing, she has a voice that will knock your socks off. And in fact, when we sing, well, you guys know, you performed with her, you know, you sing with her, and she does a lot of Aretha Franklin in the Motown band that we're in, Sounds of Motown. People lose their minds. They lose their minds when she opens her mouth. And she's such a modest person that, you know, she's not one to really trumpet her own horn, but she has a pretty fantastic voice.
We're a big fan.
When we were trying to set this up last week, she sent me a text and said I was talking to Liz. You should send her a text. And I'm like, okay, well, when were you talking to her? Like 5 minutes ago. And I said, well, I'll give it a little bit before I text her back. And it was like, it's not matchmaker set up the interview. So, but you and I had a great chat. We covered an awful lot of racetrack, everything from TV to music to a lot of different. It wasn't just about this interview. So if I was to say a preference, and I know you've worked in front of the camera for years, now you're producing, and you told me you really like that. If you're to take music, producing, being in front of the TV, acting, what would your first choice be?
That's such a good question, because I make a living as a TV person, but I think my soul comes alive in the singing, and I never really realized it until this regular gig that we now have. And even with the Motown band, there's just, well, you guys know, there's just something that happens when you're making live music with other people. It's just like organic. I'm looking at you, I'm listening to you. You know, it's just this thing you're only doing at that minute, at that time.
Yeah.
That's never sound the same again. And I realized when I leave that gig, or most gigs, you're just, you know, you can't sleep.
That's
So
right.
ecstatic.
That's right. It's that magic that's created, and it's something that's being created. Now, I'm not saying being an on-air personality wouldn't be creative. You'd have to think on your feet and pivot and change and turn and whatever the case may be, but you kind of have an idea what you're going to do is for a short period of time. You're doing 3 sets, you know, at the Flea Club or at Pacifico. I mean, like, you don't know what's going to happen. So there's that nervous energy, and then the magic happens when it's just comes together. We get it, and you exhibited that the other night for us. So yeah, we get it. And you get it.
Oh, and it's fun. I mean, I have to say, it's rewarding when I have told a couple of stories in my day as a reporter, where you're talking to someone who, you know, they're telling you this story for the first time. They've never told this story. It's probably like something that happened that was super significant in their life. Maybe they're in their 60s and 70s, and they're like, when I was 40, this happened to me. You have 2 minutes to put that story to air, and you have to do it justice. So when you take the time and you get all the pieces and you edit it together, and it's just like mini little awesome ball of information, and the person calls you and says, thank you, that was exactly, or, you know, they were happy with the story. Those times are pretty rewarding, but it's in a different way. I don't get that same energy from performing. You know, it's very hard to replicate that anywhere else.
Well, people don't realize TV, it's a lot of standing around. It's a lot of waiting. It's like there's energy, but it's a different energy. You know, you don't have people clapping, and sometimes it's boring, and you got to really kind of figure out a way to make it exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's not that, like, I remember, you know, I've taught kids piano when I was younger. And some of them are just like, I don't think this is my thing, but like, I'm just supposed to be here because my mom says I got to be here. And I always would say to the kids, like, you know, everyone has something they're really, really good at, and you'll figure out what that is. And maybe it's cooking, or maybe you just know how to fix cars. And you know, when you know that, like, I'm just good at this thing, I don't know how I'm good at it. Right. And I think Michelle Ryder, who we just talked about, would say the same thing. She just knows how to sing. She hears music. And I just assumed everyone heard music in their head all the time, or knew how to harmonize. Or I just thought everyone, you know, so I think that's the thing when you realize, oh, I think I know how to do that. That's my thing.
And it's good when you see somebody that's good, but, you know, you've been to those shows where you're trying to find something good in what you're watching, and sometimes it's just not possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Great shoes. I love your shoes, man.
Yeah.
And shoes are important.
Sure they are. Liz, tell me this now. What would you, now you've been like an industry professional now, and I don't want to say how many years, because I mean, to me, you look like you're 29, but I mean, I know you've been at it for a while, right?
Low lighting.
What would you say is your biggest accomplishment so far?
In terms of, well, in terms of the music
or TV, whatever.
Well, I mean, without a doubt, it's like, it's the smallest thing ever, but, well, we produce a telethon every year, the IWK telethon.
Right.
And when they flip over the thing, I mean, because, like, you don't know how much is coming in. You've you've organized like all the camera people to be there, and you make sure everyone's fed, and like there's all the little nitty gritty. And then the little kids turn over the totals, and there's like $6 million or however much you've raised. I just feel like, okay, we have all done something really good here. And it's this huge team of people that together do all their little pieces. And it's like, there's the finished pizza, and you all made it together, and it's big. It's worth $6 million or whatever. That's huge. And then one year we did a project with veterans. Funny, Remembrance Day. We got on this train that Via Rail made. They offered a train for free to veterans in Atlantic Canada, and they picked them up in their communities, and we drove to Ottawa on the train, and they put them up like you could get a hotel package just so they could be there for Remembrance Day on the Hill. And so like we said, well, we'll just get on the train and follow them along and ask people stories. So we got I was like, okay. So we get on the train, we meet some really nice guys from the North Shore Regiment, and they're super fun, and we're chatting with them, and there might have been a gin and tonic involved. And then we're on the train, and we get to the first stop along the route where we're stopping to let the new veterans on. And the newspaper had printed up Canadian flags because I think they knew about this trip. And there were people standing on the side of the tracks holding up the papers and saying thank you to these like veterans. Well, then when we got to like Bathurst or something, the train was delayed because every place we stopped, we were delayed for 20 minutes. When we got to Bathurst, it might have been, I don't know, 1 a.m. People had stayed to wave flags and thank the veterans. Wow. It was so inspiring. And we made like a mini documentary, and that I think was like, it was cool.
That's really cool.
Well, and I mean, something like that's a great memory considering what happened this year, where, I mean, some of these folks, we don't know how much longer they're going to be around. And I was just thinking yesterday, for some of them, it had to be heartbreaking because a lot of them, that's the one time a year they see all their buddies and spin the yarns, and, really, really tough for them. I watched some of the stuff on TV, and it was nice, but it was different, and it was a little bit sad.
Would you guys normally go to a cenotaph on the 11th?
Every year.
Every year I do with my kids too. Same thing. Yeah.
I guess you hate to miss it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it.
And they get all dressed up, and they get the chance to wear their medals, and it's it's that whole pomp and majesty that unfortunately just COVID. Yes, yeah.
COVID. I mean, I can't.
It's gonna be like the new swear word, eh? COVID.
But thank God that's how I know how to use Zoom now because of COVID.
Right. Well, and that's a good point because, I mean, one of the things when we first started this little show, there's a lot of people who we know that started doing these live feeds, and a lot of them are now saying this is going to be part of the repertoire now. If they're not playing on a Friday night, they're going to go and do a live feed and try to earn a little money doing it that way. So that's, if you're going to have to take a positive, that's certainly a positive out of it.
Yeah.
Well, your guys' show, I mean, you must be just like, because when you started, it was just like, let's have an idea. And like all the people you've interviewed, it's insane.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. So right where I'm sitting right now is over at Dave's, and one of our members, we just put a show to tell us who you want to hear. And we're figuring, it's not going to be anything too bad. But somebody says Todd Zuckerman, who's the drummer in Styx. And it's like, yeah,
arguably the best drummer in the world. Like, voted 11 times, the best drummer in the world, right?
My God.
So anyway, your friend and my friend, Bruce Nelson, I get a text from him. I got him. And I'm like, what do you mean you got him? I got Todd Zuckerman. What? Zuckerman emails me 20 minutes later. Yeah, I could do it this date. Don't even care what we talk about. And he was the coolest guy. The guy who actually suggested him, we pulled a prank on him and said, we're interviewing Zuckerman tomorrow night, but we want you to come on and help us with the thing. So we go, hey, this is our buddy Steve, and the thing slides over, and it's Todd Zuckerman and our buddy Tommy, and Tommy couldn't even speak. He was just like, ugh.
Oh, you didn't tell him?
He came that close to crying. We really wanted him to cry. It would have been awesome if he had cried, right? Like a little girl.
Yeah.
You didn't tell him. You just said, you said it was Steve, but it was actually Zuckerman.
Yeah.
It was Zuckerman. And I mean, other things too. I mean, we interview Liberty DeVito, and you want to talk about a nice man. I mean, like, I don't know if you've ever seen the show Hired Gun. He was my favorite guy. I said, if I could spend 5 minutes talking to that man, whatever happens in my career would be gravy.
He was a co-writer for so many of those songs for Billy Joel for 30 years. 30 years with Billy Joel, right?
Incredible.
And and his agent had promised us 15 minutes. We talked to him for 45 minutes. He didn't want to stop. You know, because here's the thing with Sean and I, like we're authentic, we're real, much like yourself. You know, it's just that we want to hear this. We're fans. We want to hear the story to entertain ourselves, and hopefully the 5,000 people in the Facebook group and the 1,000 people on YouTube, hopefully they dig it too. But if they don't, it's okay. We started this for ourselves because we were going crazy with COVID. That's what we were doing. We needed to some kind of a positive, you know, release.
And it's nice because I've seen you guys like play, but I never actually met you until I got to see you at the club the other week. So that's kind of good too, you know. Like I always love meeting new musicians.
Yeah.
And Liz was saying they suck equally playing as they do on their show. They're consistent. I'm just kidding, Liz.
Steve Murphy better be worried.
Actually, I got a Steve Murphy story for you. Can I tell you a Steve Murphy story?
Of course you can.
So last Boxing Day, I was at a house party over in Dartmouth, and a friend of mine was having a little party, and we're sitting there jamming, and all of a sudden, knock on the door, and in walks Steve Murphy. He was
Like
hanging out with
news
somebody.
anchor.
Yeah. And he sits down, and we sat there for 45 minutes. You know, we had a few pops playing probably the worst sounding crap, and he clapped the whole time. Really nice guy. And then all of a sudden, it was like, well, that's it for me. Thanks. And out the door he went. And that was last Boxing Day. So interesting.
He's no Dave Wright, but he's pretty good Steve Murphy.
Oh, Dave. You know, his dad had a big band.
Steve Murphy?
He mentioned that night.
Okay.
Yeah. And his dad was a brass player, I think. And I mean, you're hard pressed to stump Murphy with a tune. Like to say, guess who sang that?
Oh, really?
Bear? Yep. I mean, and plus, like, I'll throw a 70s tune in there to say, like, do you remember this tune? And he knows who wrote it. He knows everything anyway. But he has a really extensive base about music.
Well, my takeaway too was that I said something, and he did the Columbo. He came back and was like, "Uh-oh, he's going to ask me a question. I'm going to get really uncomfortable." And he did the Steve Murphy voice, and I was like, "Okay, come on, dude. Like, cut me some slack." I thought I was being really funny, but apparently it was just funny in my own head. So anyway, it was a great night. He was a super, super, super nice guy, and it was a lot of fun.
But you got that radio voice too.
Again, I've heard great face for radio, so we'll try that next.
Face for radio. That's exactly it. Liz, tell us what's going on for you in the future now. So what's next for Liz Rigney?
Well, I just started working on the morning show. That's now part of what we do at work, and I really like it because I used to work as a host on the morning show. So now I get to do a little more work, you know, behind the scenes and sort of get stuff ready and look at the whole big picture about the show. And I really love that because the people on the team are so fun to work with. And then I love the Cowie band. I mean, the G Street band. I don't know if I say that wrong. If I said that wrong, that could get me in trouble.
I know. I think that's you be really careful. They can go wrong in different ways in my mind.
Street. The G Street band. I'm hoping that I think we'll probably try and get into some more complicated stuff. I mean, they play some pretty like Thelonious Monk and just stuff like I don't have a lot of repertoire in that world, the more straight up stuff. So I'd like to get, and plus I have to do a lot more like that scat kind of stuff, which I don't know how to do. So I'm listening to like basically Ella Fitzgerald every day as I drive to work. Yeah. It's a world I don't really get. So I'm really hoping to get more of that. And it's, I don't know, with COVID, my mom was in PEI and I couldn't travel there to see my mom and dad. So on Saturdays, she would say, "Oh, we miss having you home." So I would play and sing and like do a Facebook Live for my family. And I realized that I can't play and sing at the same time. I can play and I can sing, but I can't do both. So I'm working on that.
Well, here's how bad things got when all this is going on. So our band one night was going to do a Facebook Live when things were sort of busting up, like everybody was kind of in their bubble. So we put it out, hey, the frequency's going to go out. We're going to do a live hit. Well, our bass player didn't show up. So the three of us played Wii Bowling, and we videotaped it, and we had over 2,500 people watching us Wii Bowl. That's how desperate people were for entertainment. That's awesome. Yeah.
Who won?
Not me. I sucked that night. A distant third. Kyle Boudreau, our lead singer. He He's a bit of a ringer. So if you ever need a wee bowler,
He cheats.
send me a text and I'll make that connection.
Do you think he'd be expensive for the wee bowling?
He probably worked for sandwiches.
I make
Or
a
Jaeger.
sandwich. okay, that's
Or
easier.
Jaeger, yes.
Yeah. We have more Jaeger than bread in the house. Yes.
Girl, like my own hair. So I guess the other question I guess I have for you now. So with the morning show, so is it? Are you content to stay where you are? Or I guess, or what's there? Are you happy in Halifax? You're happy. You're from here, stayed here your whole life, pretty much. I guess. Haven't you?
Yeah, I was born in Prince Edward Island, and I came here after, like, to go to school, and I just sort of stayed here. And my parents, well, actually, I just lost my dad in September. It was such a tough loss for our family. But I was so close to both of them that it was so nice to be able to scoot home. And it's fun to, like, I really like television. It's really fun. And I love to be able to drive to work in 12 minutes and not pay for parking and see the ocean every day. And when I was younger, I used to think, like, oh, this is cool, but if I lived in New York, like, just imagine, I mean, I used to have that, like, oh, I should. But then you start to realize, okay, like, what is making you happy right now? Well, I actually like the people I work with. I like where I live. I like my friends. So I think, you kind of come full circle and come back and go, like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't move. Because I do know people who are living away,
right,
who would love to come back now. Because, like, I'm like 47 American now. So I'm a little like, I'm getting up there. So I now am, like, content not to live in a big city.
Well, and again, we first started this show. That's one of the things that we got from a lot of people. There was a lot of people that were really into it and really excited, but different sorts of stories where people were blue, they were missing home. And we got some really sad feedback. But then we had a couple stories. One guy in particular who had a tragic death in his family, who basically didn't communicate with anybody. As soon as we started this show, he got really engaged, and we got a lot of notes saying, thank you so much for, having him back. And so it was really neat. David and I figured out pretty quickly that we're doing something that we can't just be a couple of jackasses. People are really watching us, so we gotta do the right thing as much as we can.
It's human connection, Liz.
It's nice because, you're bringing musicians together. And, like, I saw a couple of people on your feed who I'd only ever heard of by their reputation, but then to see them actually talk, and it's funny, most of the people you're chatting with, they're just normal.
Mm-hmm.
They're so, like, like a Lee Aaron type person. You just think, oh, they're just in this other world or whatever. And then it's like, actually, they're just normal.
And she, it's funny because I had the opportunity to open for her a number of years ago at the old Misty Moon. And and she was a sweetheart then, and she's a sweetheart now. And, she gave us a little tour of her house, and you want to talk about some pretty cool stuff. And that was another one where her manager said half hour, and I think we were darn near close to an hour and a half. And we actually had to say, we respect your time, Lee. And so it was great.
Oh, that's so cool. You must just find it to be so fun, especially nowadays where we can't, I mean, I feel fortunate, at least I'm playing right now, but when you're used to playing so much more and you're not playing, like, you must love it because you're getting to talk to people who do what you do.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we love being surprised. I'm sure it's the same as you, like Ken Tobias. I did not know the name. I knew the songs. Oh my God. I knew his entire repertoire. And somebody had put me onto it and said, just Ken Tobias. He's in St. John de Brunswick. I was like, okay. So Google, I was like, oh my God, he wrote that song and that song and that song and that song. And what an awesome guy. But just he's a tenor. And I had no idea. Like, so we were so surprised, and what a great guy, and just the talent that stems from Atlantic Canada, or the people that have ties to Atlantic Canada that are abroad, it's amazing. So we're constantly amazed ourselves, and I'm glad people are enjoying it. They're along for the ride, but it's really for Sean and I. So if y'all like it, that's great. We're gonna keep on.
Exactly. I remember one year I was involved in the tattoo for a number of years. There was like Brenna Conrad, who's from Toronto. She always would sing, and then a couple of other different soloists. And I remember there's one particular year I got to do this song about living in Canada and like how awesome it is, and so it was a big thing, and like the band was playing, it was like, and the audio guys, like Huggy. You guys know him? He's like audio.
Yep.
He was doing audio, and it was just like you sounded like you were the queen of the world. Like, even if you had the worst voice ever, I don't know, he presses these buttons, you're like, like, oh my God. And then they released that video to it's pay-per-view in the States, and I don't know how many people from like all different walks of life from the States or wherever, and they were just writing like, oh, we had no idea there was this kind of music in Canada. Like, you had this caliber of people, because I mean, we have all these great musicians who were like military bands of all different stripes and colors, and people who played bagpipes, and I just like, Maritimes, that's in the soil. Like, music is in the soil.
Exactly. And you're right. The tattoo is a huge part of that. You're so prideful when you leave the tattoo. Like, I love it. I have Scottish heritage too, right? In French and English, whatever. But it's like that. You're so prideful when you leave that place, and I know you're a big part of that too. So I mean, that's good on you, Liz. That's awesome, really.
Yeah, those were fun times. Yeah.
I guess one of the cool, and you play with Sam Moon, and Sam was one of the interviews that I really loved. Sam, his feed was like this the whole time. He was way up like this, and
he was like this first. He was like this first. It's like, Sam, maybe you can sit for your chair. Okay. And then he was like, God loves Sam. For the longest time, he was like this.
Yeah, but he was great. And one of my favorite things about that interview, we were talking about Richie Oakley. And Sam's like, Sean, I'm going to tell you something. Richie Oakley used to say, if you can't play drunk, you can't play. That's what he said. And I was like, thank you, Sam Moon. But just little things like that, just the different sorts of stories. It's funny how a lot of the stories are the same, but they're connected in some way. But you hear little sorts of things that, every one that we do, I go, wow, that's something there that I didn't know that I learned.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And Sam, oh my God, Sam's in that band that I'm in, the Sounds of Motown. And when we introduce the band members and you introduce Sam, it's like you just said, and Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesus from Cape Breton. I know it.
Oh my God, Jesus.
Who's your father? Who's your father?
God. My mother's Mary. And we were getting to call him Mayor Moon. We're starting just to call him like Mayor Moon,
Yeah. Don't call him Richard though. He gets upset.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know he had a name other than Sam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the day, I was like, you actually have another name?
Yeah. Mr. Moon. And and again, I mean, it's like, it's funny because one of the first interviews we did was Jackie Smith, who played in Razor Boy, Jackie was one of our heroes. And then we went from that to a couple weeks later, we get Darby Mills on the show, and Darby was the one that probably gave us that first little bit of, you know what, maybe we're doing something that people. We had her on the show for 3 friggin' hours.
Wow.
And she was incredible, and we still text and talk. And she said it was her son's birthday last week, and just a super down to earth lady, amazing.
Is she still performing?
Well,
she is.
But she's writing.
Oh wow. Her voice, I don't know how she was able to sustain that power and not lose her voice. Like, she was incredible.
She's in great shape. She's in great shape. She's
Well, then another great one, and it's funny because Dave and I were trying to do the Women of Rock kind of a segment, and we were trying to get Holly Woods from Toronto for the longest time.
Oh my God.
We couldn't get her. So one of my heroes is Barry Connors, who was the drummer in Toronto. And Barry became an instant friend to me. I talk to him all the time. Just a super, super nice man. I grew up absolutely idolizing him. Anyway, Holly comes on the show talking about the sweetest person. And I had no idea she has a Southern accent. And I'm sitting there listening to this little lady with a North Carolina accent. She was amazing. Just incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. You just have these people like they're in a different world, or they're on a different level or something. You just can't believe that they could be normal. Yeah. But I guess, they all have the same. That's why I think people probably love watching this, because they're like, oh yeah, I can't play either. And I love when that happens. They're like the Sam Moon stories.
Well, like, for yourself. You've interviewed a lot of people in your years on TV. Just for some people that you may have been a little bit awestruck or starstruck from at first. But when you get a chance to talk to them off camera, then on camera, it's probably pretty normal when you're part of his friends. Do you find that?
Yeah, I gotta say there was like night and day with a couple of people. Anna McGoldrick was on the show a lot, the Irish singer. Mm-hmm. And there's a great story that Todd Battis, who's a reporter, tells about being at the ECMAs. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, I don't know where it was, but they had food trucks or whatever. And one of the food trucks, you've probably seen, like, they sell like those big turkey legs. Like you can get like corn on the cob, and then one sold the turkey legs. So it's late at night, and Todd's eating his like little turkey leg, and Anna McGoldrick comes over and she says, Todd Battis, give us a bite of your turkey, would you?
Yeah.
We quote that to this day. So there's a woman who's just like, hi, I'm me, I'm normal me. And then Chantal Kreviazuk, who I respect and I just love her songwriting. I think she's a miracle. She was fairly new. It was her first album or maybe second album. And I didn't realize that she had been like a concert pianist. Like she was so talented as a piano player and as a singer and as a writer. So I just went back to the makeup room to say, hey, so we're on in about 10 minutes. Just wanted to let you know. And she's like, okay. I said, God, this must be incredible. You write this music, you get to sing across the country, and you look in the audience and people know the words to your song. And she said, yeah, but I'm singing the same songs every day for the last 8 months. Like, yeah. You know, it's the first time I thought music is a business. You know, it's not just, you know, yeah.
I was on BT and she was a guest. She wasn't performing. I was on there with my band. She was pregnant at the time, I think, with her third kid. Ask Jason Baxter if he remembers. He asked her a question and she gave this, it was like an Earth Mother type answer. And Jason, there was dead air for about 30 seconds. And we're in the back, like eating the hors d'oeuvres and stuff. It's like, Jason's not going to pull it. And he said something. I don't remember what he said, but it was absolutely hilarious. So I get it. And sometimes there's those awkward moments where I won't name names, but we had an interview about 6 weeks ago where we interviewed somebody and the person was a little bit surly for probably the first 5 minutes, to the point where I was going to say, we're not going live. So, and then they turned it around and it was a lot of fun. So that happens too, right?
It is interesting that people, they will sometimes just be themselves, and you're almost grateful of it because you realize like, okay, wow, like I said, like they're people, you know?
Yep.
Yeah. But the most famous story of all of the interviewing of the people is it happened on Remembrance Day, believe it or not. We had Blue Rodeo, and they came to the studio because they'd released an album. They were one of the first bands in Canada to actually go back to the album format. It was like several years ago.
Yep.
And my parents were in town and they wanted to go to the Cenotaph. But, you know, I said, okay, we have to do this interview with these people, and then we're going to go to the Cenotaph. So can I just do the interview? We'll bring you in the studio. You just hang out. I'll get the interview done. Then we're good. Yes, that's fine. Okay. So as I'm pulling up, the rep is pulling up with, it was just Greg Keeler and who's the famous guy from Blue Rodeo? God,
Jim Cuddy.
Jim Cuddy. Sorry, Jim.
Please tell me there's more than Greg
out.
Keeler. Jim Cuddy had to be there.
Yeah, just Jim and Greg. It was like a mini tour. So I get out of the car with my 82-year-old mother and father. And I say, oh, Mom, look, these are the people we're going to interview right now. It's Greg Keeler and Jim Cuddy. They're from Blue Rodeo. You have to know my mother, but she looks at Greg Keeler. She says, you're going on television like that? He says, well, what do you mean? She says, why don't you comb your hair? And to his credit, very, very smart guy. He says, well, Mrs. Rigney, this is an acquired look. I've worked on this look. So she got it. She gave it up. They go to the bathroom. I bring Blue Rodeo in. I get them all mic'd up and ready to roll. We finish, and we're just about to do the interview. I go back and say, Mom, these guys are like rock and roll, like royalty in Canada. They can't even walk down the street. She goes, oh, I didn't know. So I'm back in the set, and Mom comes in and she says to Jim Cuddy, well, apparently you are men of great renown. He says, well, apparently not, because you don't know who we are.
She from Kelly's Cross, by any chance? Is she from Kelly's Cross? Where's your mom from?
Actually, my parents are from the States. They're Americans.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and they moved up in the late 60s because their dad had a job opportunity. So he said, do you want to move to Canada? And Mom was like, yeah, let's do it. And it changed the course of our lives, I think.
Right.
Amazing. So in your course of doing interviews, and I won't ask you to name names, but did you have that one where you were really, really, really excited to meet the person and they wound up being just both a painful interview and probably not nice, maybe having a bad day? I won't ask you to name names, but does that happen?
Well, I have to say that most of the people we interviewed who were big shots, were actually, like you have witnessed, nice people.
Yep.
But one time, so we would, in the old days before they had e-talk, we were sent to Los Angeles to do interviews for those things they called junkets. So they'd show you a movie, and then you'd go to this room, and then you'd be ushered in for 3 minutes with all the stars. So like 4 different interviews in a row, and you had to be ready and have your tapes. And like, so I was just out of my league. I mean, I was in LA. I'd never been to LA. I had my like outfit on that I thought was cool, but I don't know. And I was looking at all these other people in like Nordstrom's, and like, I was like, oh my God. So I go in and interview this actor who was like the star of the show. And well, I mean, it was, what's his name? Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh, yes.
He does not suffer fools lightly. I bombed the interview because he made me so nervous. He didn't even try. Like, I was just like, how are you? He goes, fine. Like, you know, he was just so curt and short with his answers, and I felt stupid every question. I could have asked him, like, do you think the equilibrium of air versus water, do you think, like, I could have asked him any amazing question ever, and he still would have been like, well, of course. Like, I was dead.
Didn't he realize you're all dressed up like Mary Tyler Moore and everything? That was a sin, right?
Remember I used to have the hair, I don't know if you remember, but I had the hair that curved out like that.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it was hard to
We were all on BT, hon. We were all on that show a few times. That's right.
I'm just apologizing to you now for making you get up that early. What were we thinking?
I don't know what the hell you were thinking. That was retarded. Seriously, why would you get up at 6 o'clock? Not even 6, 5 o'clock to get up on it? Oh my God.
I can't believe we had live bands. But you know, once you get in there, and like remember Scott Boyd? He was so fun, and Kurt. Like, it was just like we were making TV. We didn't really know what we were doing. There were no rules, and we had live bands. And sometimes, you know, you'd have to go wake the band up in their van. You're like, knock, knock.
They just stayed out, eh? They just stayed at downtown and went back to the studio.
They go like, played the Palace, go back to the band room. Okay. Oh my God. So in the Sounds of Motown, like, I've never been in like a traditional type like band like you guys are in. I didn't really understand, like, there's green rooms for the bands to hang out in. So we played the Shore Club, and there's like a well, it's not green, you know, there's a green room in the Shore Club. And it's like, you know, the couches are like from a billion years old, I guess, in every green room. And it's just this place that you didn't even realize there was an extra spot. So there's probably green rooms in every place you guys have played.
No. We play some bars, and you use the VLT room till about 12 o'clock when they shut it down. Then you got to go out there. It's not like it used to be.
The Palace had a nice dressing room. The Misty one had a nice dressing. The Crazy Horse had a nice dressing room. These are all.
Oh my God, the Crazy Horse! I forgot about the Crazy Horse.
So, I mean, there was places that we played that was, you know, that was nice. And if you were, you know, up and coming, we get to a certain point when we were playing that we could, you know, demand a case of beer between 6 of us. You know what I mean? So, or whatever it was.
Crazy.
I mean, you know, and you might get, you know, some leftover egg sandwiches from somebody's funeral or whatever it was. But I mean, there were certain things you get, you know, if you're the university tour, Sean, we did the university tour, those were fun. Because you
Dave and mine's career started out really neat. We did a schooner music tour. I don't know if you remember the band Drama back in the day.
Yeah.
He just passed away a little while ago. Anyway, we did a university tour.
Right.
We got free food, free swag, free beer. We thought that was going to be it. And then we proceeded to get fired from every bar we played after that. It was like literally the Palace fired, the Moon fired. Yeah. We went to Newfoundland fired. And
why?
You know, well, we sucked, but I mean, that's besides the point.
We were pretty heavy too. We were pretty heavy at the time, so yeah.
Well, you know, it taught us tenacity. It taught us how to deal with club owners. It taught us to not take no for an answer. And you know, thankfully that hasn't happened to me ever again. But you know, it built a little character when I was 17 years old.
Yeah, wow. God. I mean, but the dinner theater, we had a dressing room. I mean, it was all very like on the up and up. So yeah.
Did we get Grafton Street or Halifax?
Sorry?
Grafton Street or Halifax dinner theater?
I was at Grafton Street, but we were all, you know, I knew a lot of people at the Halifax Feast because we all did the same job. Yeah. But my God, we had fun. Like Mark Schultz was a drummer and Steve Antle was a bass player, and we hung out, like, there was a crowd of us. We just hung out all the time. And putting the show together was so fun, and it was hard work, but I don't know. I learned to listen to other musicians then, because the songs were never the same each night. Like, if you weren't listening, you were off in your own world. But I really enjoyed that.
Was anything tracked? It was all natural, all organic. Like, there's really musicians playing, and you guys really sang. There's nothing tracked, was there?
No, God, no. I mean, that's what I loved, because you go to the table when they first came in, and they thought you were like you're our waitress. So sometimes they weren't super nice to you, all the people at the table, you know, and they'd just be like, yeah, I'll have a gin and tonic, like blah blah, and then look away, whatever. And like, okay. So then you go fill the drink order and take their food orders, and then suddenly the lights go down and you're up on stage singing and acting, and then they're just like, oh my God, that was really good.
You're gonna love me. That's right.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it was like
awesome. That'd be fun. That should be fun. I had a cousin of mine did that. I wish I could sing. I would love to have done that because it sounds like a great training ground. So it would be a great training ground.
Yes, great training ground, because it is, you're every night playing. It's just, especially as a singer, to try and churn out music every night, 4 and 5 nights a week, and keep your voice in good shape. That was an eye opener.
Mm-hmm. That's decent money, was it? Without getting too crass, was it decent money back then?
Like it put me through university.
That's cool. Very cool.
Like I wouldn't be driving an Aston Martin, but I mean, I would never drive anything other than my Equinox. I love that thing. But it paid for my school for sure.
Well, and that type of training ground, we talk often about, you know, you can put on YouTube and see the 4-year-old playing Tom Sawyer by Rush flawlessly, and we had to learn the hard way. And a lot of that's impressive, but the one thing that they're missing is that kind of the wood shedding, the time that it takes to actually learn the craft, to get good at it, to actually mean something. And I think that's what people miss a lot.
And something I've noticed playing with these very experienced players on the Friday and Saturday night, the G Street Band.
I can't wait till you miss it up. I can't even wait.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. Tonight at 6. Is good. Is that I noticed that they play the loudest when they don't play. Like they're adding color instead of like, look at all the cool tricks I can do. They lay back and they just, they don't have to play 100% all the time. There's sometimes when it's like say Silvio's solo, he doesn't even start to play right away. He's just playing one note with his left hand, just trying to figure out, like, get the mood. And he doesn't have to start into this unbelievable solo. Like, he works up to it. But it's almost like they appreciate the up and the down of a tune. And like the drummer sometimes just barely, I've seen him take his drumstick and hold it on the snare and play the stick on the snare. Like, I've never seen that, you know. So that's what I'm learning from these guys, is like, play, don't have to be, like, I call it the Mariah Carey, when everything's a note style credenza the whole time. You miss where's the form of the song. So that's something I'm trying to take away from those guys, how they, It's
a musical maturity that, you know, sometimes it's not what you play, it's what you don't play. And a lot of people miss that. And, you know, you're listening to something that you hear somebody flying around a million notes and it's just, there's nothing to it. There's no, so, I mean, it's like, wow, you're incredible. But where's the 2? Where's the 4? Where's the, you know what I mean? And some people miss that a lot.
It's a quote that we say a lot, but the music really is between the notes, you know. And it's funny, I didn't realize, and actually I found it the other day. It was a quote from Mozart, I guess. I didn't know Mozart, but I had actually read it. I had actually read it in the Bass Guitar for Dummies book. It's like, the music is between the notes. That made sense to me, right? I thought he wrote it, but there you go. But it's true. There's something to be said about that character, that maturity, and that only comes from being in front of so many different people so many times that you can judge a crowd and you can judge the song and you know a feel right away. And you can't teach that. You have to almost experience it.
Yeah, it's neat to see people at that level play, because you just go, oh, okay. You know, you kind of have to see
you're right there, my darling. You were right there. We watched you.
I am
You're right
like
there.
listening so hard.
Dave did, he left out the fact that it was a bass guitar book for dummies, but it was an audio book. So I don't know if he didn't slide that in. So we just have to, you know.
Podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Dave's no dummy though. So obviously I'm ever the optimist. I don't think that they can close the bars down. I think that the genie's out of the bottle, the horse is out of the barn. I mean, Dave and I, the first night was June 5th that everything opened up. Dave and I went out that night. From what we've seen, for the most part, everybody's been minding their P's and Q's, as my grandmother used to say. I think that's the way it's going to go. I don't want to beat up on the media, because I'm kind of the media now in a way. I think that sometimes there's certain people in there that are almost seem like they're going to be disappointed if the second wave doesn't happen.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
And for me, it annoys me a bit because a lot of my friends and a lot of your friends derive their livelihoods from being able to play in front of people. And it'll be a really bad thing if it won't happen, but it was really bad the first time. Don't want to see it happen the second time.
If you don't realize, like, I understand why they pay hockey players so much money because they are in top physical shape. I understand why doctors get paid lots of money because they're miracle workers. But there just should be some standard wage for musicians. Like, it just seems like it's such an important part of our culture and our heritage and who we are and where we're going. It's just like, you know, because I've seen in other countries, let's say like an opera group, you know, they're subsidized by the government. And I'm not saying like there's money out to go around for everybody. Just wish there was a different model. And maybe this is, now that we're all online, maybe something's going to happen where there's a way to monetize music. Because didn't you find that music became the thing that people wanted when the pandemic struck? People were going online to find music, and not necessarily like their big famous music stars that they've loved their whole life. They wanted to see their next door neighbor play. They wanted to see a fiddle reel. They wanted to see some jazz. Like, I just find like that's the thing that brings people together.
Our best friend in the world now is Heather Cameron Thompson. She started the ultimate online kitchen party, and she was one of our first guests we had on too. And she is just the sweetest soul you've ever met because she just saw the need and tried to fill the need. And we, to be fair, we kind of said, hey, we can do the same thing, but we'll just do it on a live presentation. Like, we didn't even know Zoom existed yet. We thought we'll just do this FaceTime and we'll just turn the phone and see what happens. We didn't know how to do it. We figured it out, and it's the same thing. It's like there's a need, and you're trying to fill the need. It's the same thing you do with your day gig or your night gig, Liz. I mean, you're filling the need. You're entertaining people. You know, it needs to be done, right? And our industry, whether it be on camera, off camera, on stage, off stage, acting, dancing, being a comedian, it's important. We need to recognize it, and we need to support it every chance we can. And that's just kind of why we're all here.
Yeah, and I do notice that people have been very good about supporting, you know, ticketed online events. Like, I do notice people are paying for online events, which is great.
I think part of the problem too with the arts, people view it as not a real business.
That is not COVID, sorry.
That's all right.
I have a cat.
Oddly enough, I'm wiping my forehead off after that. But
whatever, lady.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. I think what it is, though, is the arts isn't maybe taken seriously because it's viewed as fun. When we're up there playing, we're having a good time, and it's. I always talk about the wedding. You know, they book the hall, they book the caterer, they book the church, they book the limo, they book this, they book that, and then they go, hey, I got $250, want to do my wedding? Well, no. Well, $3,200 is too much. Well, you're not paying for that wedding. You're paying for all the experience it took to get me there, and it's well worth it.
Yeah.
But they don't view it in the same way.
Yes, and Mike Cowie people always say to him, well, just do it for the exposure. He always says, people die from exposure.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're so right. You see a fancy event, and you've been on that side of things, as an entertainer, you see, oh, I know how much they've paid to rent that speaker. I know how much they've paid the caterer. Like, the caterer's just not going to do it for free.
I paid the priest before I was married. Before I know what that shit costs too. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And it's almost like you can't even begrudge that because of the work it's taken people to get to the level they're at where you want to hire them.
No, and that's it. I mean, one of the things we're really trying to do with this more than anything else is to help those people get paid. I mean, part of it was to help them get exposed for the exposure when it was all going on. But I mean, one of the things that we really try to do, if there's an opportunity to help somebody get paid for what they're doing, that's what we want to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're so grateful to be playing on Friday and Saturdays. It's just like, I can't believe that if anyone was going to get a gig during a pandemic, it's Mike. He's just so smart. And, he's played for so many years and he knows so many people in town that the bar owner was like, hey, I think maybe let's try and make this work. And, to be adaptable, I think helps too. And so many people, they can play pretty much any style. Like all the guys, pretty much play whatever style.
No.
Is he going to tell the truth? Is he going to tell the truth or not? Let's see.
You had to.
Here's
not everybody that I know, but
here's what we're really good at, Liz Rigney. We're really good at promoting stuff. So we're going to talk about Mike Cowie and the G Street Band.
Yes. Yeah, that's fun. It's fun. We don't know how long it's going to last, but it is. I mean, I think it's pretty special. I just can't believe every time we finish it. Sometimes we'll finish the song and we'll just look at each other like, what just happened?
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yeah, we felt that when we were there. Listen, we're almost out of time, Liz. Anything you want to end off on? Like, what else would you want us to know about Liz Rigney?
Well, I'm just happy to meet you guys. You're so fun. And I was so happy to see you guys show up on that last week. I just looked over. I'm like, that's the guys. I know it's them for sure. Yeah, it's nice to meet you guys.
Look how handsome they are.
Well,
Look at God. It was low light though. It was very dim light.
yeah, well, but my question to you is, did you recognize us because you saw our show, or when I said that I look like cast number, what was it? Thug number 3, Sons of Anarchy, season 7. I look like that guy. Remember when I said that on the phone last week? Did you recognize me because I gave you that?
No, because you both said like we look like we could have walked off a runway in Vogue. And when you walked in, I was like, that's gotta be them. I mean,
man, Liz Rigney, she's firing at like 5% right now, man. She's bringing it, eh? I get the feeling you could take it up a notch or two, girl.
Dinner theater taught me a lot.
Where's the gin and tonic? Where's the gin and tonic? Look at this thing being real here soon.
So close. It's past 9 yet. It's like so close. Yeah.
It's 12 o'clock somewhere. Anyhow. Liz Rigney, we really appreciate you being on the show. First of all, we really appreciate you being here because we've had a blast. I know we could keep on talking all night long, but we probably should.
Well, and so here's the thing: we're going to continue to promote you guys and your show down there. We didn't really get a chance to have a drink tonight. We were out last Friday, but we'll pop down again and do that.
I'm buying.
We're really good at drinking.
We'll see
I should warn you up front. We're really, really good at it.
You got to be good at something now.
There's a good islander. Okay, let's call it night then. Liz, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys, and see you when you come visit next time.
All right.
Thanks, girl.
We're out.
Peace out.
Take care, hon.